I like boobs. Soulcalibur IV is kind of a weird game for me. I'm a big fan of fighting games, so I'm gravitating towards it. And there's a lot of things to like about it as a fighting game, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that once you get in there and start digging around that really just kind of pushed me away from it. It felt like every time I liked the game, there was like one thing on the next screen right there saying, no, just turn it off, stop playing. So that kind of push and pull really stayed with me throughout the entire game, and I was left feeling, I don't know, a little indifferent about the whole thing. So we'll start with the things that are good about Soulcalibur IV, and that's that it looks really nice. Technically, the graphics are fantastic. It has great looking backgrounds, really sharp looking character models, and the animation is really, really good too. Then there's the actual fighting itself. This feels right. Soulcalibur is an interestingly different 3D fighter. Because everyone has weapons and everyone comes to the ring with a different weapon, the game's more about parrying and countering these incoming attacks with your own weapon, or, worrying about the range. You've got a guy with nunchucks that doesn't really lash out too far, and you've got the Kilik with his big bow that is gonna hit you from across the screen, and it feels nicely different from the other things that are on the market right now. There are a lot of different characters to choose from in Soulcalibur IV, which is another nice thing. There's definitely plenty of options for you to play around with. You have a lot of the series favorites are returning, Mitsurugi obviously in the game. But then you have some other nice new characters that are in there, and then some characters that maybe don't fit so well. Which brings me to the part where I'm kind of conflicted about everything in Soulcalibur IV. The inclusion of Star Wars dudes in Soulcalibur doesn't really make much sense, and since they're not presenting it as some big crazy crossover game, there's no real reason for them to fit in other than, well, they want to try to get more people to play a Soulcalibur game and more people to buy it. As such, it kind of comes off as a little desperate. The characters themselves don't really fit into the universe, and if you're like really big into Star Wars, I guess I could see you maybe getting off on the thrill of having Yoda or having Darth Vader, but they never meet because there's only one in each version of the game. So until they actually stop lying about the downloadable content thing and put them in the other game, you're never really gonna get what you actually want out of those Star Wars dudes. The inclusion of the apprentice from The Force Unleashed at least gives you another guy with a lightsaber to mess around with, but he's not really what you want out of a Star Wars thing either. That kind of weird, creepy, desperate feel also factors into Ivy. Ivy's always been pretty much naked, but there's something about her that seems more nakeder this time, and I don't want you to get the wrong impression about me and think that I'm only into explosions. I like boobs. There, I said it. I hate to be the controversial one, but boobs are awesome. But there's a limit, there's a line. Ivy is over this line. It doesn't look right. It looks wrong. I don't like looking at her. It's creepy looking. But there's just something about it that, again, feels desperate. That's probably my biggest problem with the whole game, is that, as a fighting game, it's probably good enough to stand on its own, and throwing all this extra stuff in there really kind of detracts from the overall package. The different modes in the game also kind of detract in their own way too. The core fighting is fine, but then you have things like the story mode, which open with a wall of text that is totally uninteresting and often really poorly translated. Then you go through 5 fights, and then you're presented with a lackluster pre-rendered ending. These aren't the wacky, crazy Tekken endings you've come to know and love. The Soulcalibur endings are just kind of like, hey, I got the sword! It's evil. Credits. That's kind of lame. There's some other interesting stuff in there that has its ups and downs, like the ability to customize your characters, and you can unlock different parts, and you can either play dress up with the existing Soulcalibur characters, or just go in and create your own guy from scratch, and then assign one of the existing Soulcalibur fighting styles to your dude. So there's some versatility there. At the same time, this stuff kind of gets in the way because all the different equipment you put on has statistics with it. generally you kind of want to build a really strong character, which has you ending up looking like crap. Like you just mixed a bunch of different junk together and there's really no cohesion there. So I always ended up creating two different versions of a character. The one that like looks good and sounds right and all this stuff, and then the crappy looking one that I wanted to take into the modes where the equipment actually mattered. So that's kind of weird. Of course, Soulcalibur IV also has online play, which, I really feel you can't ship a fighting game in 2008 unless you got online play. And it seems like it works fine. Soulcalibur is a game that definitely could get pretty frame specific, and there may be some cases where you feel like you should have blocked something and you didn't, or you might run into a laggy match here and there. But the benefits of being able to find competition and play them outweigh maybe the nerdier aspects of counting frames and being way into 3D fighting. So overall, I'm torn. There's a lot of things about Soulcalibur IV that I really want to like, but every step of the way, there's something right there standing in my face saying like, this game could have been way better. So in the end, it's a 3 out of 5.